Cool. All right. Take it away, Pablo.
Well, hello, Jason. This is our first
Oh,
Toro Talk. We don't know where this is going, as far as as far as a medium, but we're kind of excited. We thought of this idea for a couple of months, and we think this is the moment to kind of release it, right, with the big change you had in life and the last couple of weeks, and just as a way for you and I and other coaches and our athletes to kind of go a little bit further than just Instagram or Discord or anything like that. I personally feel a little bit like trapped in Instagram as far as how much we can say. So we feel like this is a bit of a platform that gives us a more expansive place to talk and maybe give our opinion on different topics too.
yeah. And I think it's particularly unique because Pablo and I have known each other for a very long time. And, we've worked together as coach and athlete for a very long time. And I think we both share the same passion for sport. So we just have I think we know each other really well. We hope to kind of express our views and kind of, I don't know, get in some disagreements, but also harmony at the same time, and just share our love for the sport and some tips and tricks that we can't always share on Training Peaks or on Instagram. But yeah, we hope to make this a regular, quick 30-minute chat, at least twice a month as we can. And we hope to be way more entertaining than that boring podcast you listen to.
That's the hope. That's the hope. We don't pretend to be the next Pro Try News. We don't pretend to be anything like that. This is and this comes from lots of love for the sport. I guess that's the biggest
For
thing.
sure.
We love the sport. You and I, we could have had careers in other areas, and we decided to have them in sport because we love it. So that's awesome.
For sure.
I
Yeah.
guess
I dropped out of law school for a reason.
first point in the agenda. Big life change a couple weeks ago. Princess Jules is there reigning. How do you feel? How do you feel in these first 2 weeks? And I asked you a question a couple of days ago. What would you change now as a coach with maybe newborn fathers, which is your case in specific? Like what's that big change that you have noticed, or something that you will do different? We both have had athletes that have newborns, babies, and we want to kind of learn from this experience.
Yeah, it's certainly been eye-opening in terms of, well, look, yeah, my world has been flipped upside down. Of course, we've been preparing for it, and it wasn't like we didn't know she was coming. But yeah, she was born April 23rd here in the Phoenix area, and we brought her home after 2 days in the hospital. And it's a very surreal feeling driving home from the hospital, knowing you have a human to take care of for the rest of her life. Like it just flips everything upside down. And yeah, I've had close to 20 years of coaching working professionals, many of which who are parents, but until you do it, you just have no idea. I mean, when one of my athletes has a newborn, I usually just give them a week, 10 days of complete unstructure. And that's actually what my coach did for me, but there's just no rhyme or reason. I mean, there's no schedule, there's no nothing. It's just, keep the baby as healthy and as happy and as alive as you can.
Alive.
Yeah. And so, but, with it being 2 weeks now and with sport being a part of my life for my entire existence, I can't give that up because it makes me a better person. So I think, I'm just digging into that non-negotiable, but obviously modifying it to make it manageable. Yep. So I think by having that 10,000 foot view of all the athletes we've worked with over the years, I've figured out how to kind of navigate that elusive formula for minimum effective dose to be successful in whatever you want to be. If it's just being fit, or if you have goals of peak performance within a certain discipline or sport. But yeah, I mean, obviously the non-negotiables are Juliet, my wife, her sleep, me, and then our athletes, I think in that order. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's a lot because I've been able to live the selfish, lifestyle for 30 plus years, right? Where it's just been me, my training, my athletes training, and everything else. So figuring out, okay, I've got to learn how to swaddle. How to, well, for those who don't know, you wrap your baby snugly in a
I
blanket
had no
really
idea.
tight, yeah, to resemble the womb, and it just helps soothe her. So I've got to learn how to swaddle, which took some time, but Cora's been patient with me. Focus on my wife's sleep because she gets up in the middle of the night to breastfeed. Obviously, I can't breastfeed. We don't have that much milk right now for me to bottle feed. So it's just about, you know, making sure I can help her any way I can. If it's just, cleaning her or what. But yeah,
Yeah, just
and
helping hand there.
accepting that babies cry. I mean, it's really hard you can't just ignore a crying baby, but babies cry. Like you just have to deal with it and soothe her. And then
Well,
last, I
talking
think,
about so
go
yeah,
ahead.
sorry. No. Go ahead.
No, I think so. Learning to swaddle, focusing on core sleep, accepting, accepting that babies cry, and then taking care of myself. I know that if I don't have uh, at least 30 to 60 minutes of intense exercise a day, I'm not a very good person to be around. And so that's a non-negotiable. And I just have trying to find a way to get it in. And look, my wife is an athlete and she's very kind and patient with me, but she knows I'm a better person for it. And it affects my neurochemistry if I can't get it in. So it's on me
Absolutely.
to get up at 2, 3 a.m. to find a way to get it in, and then play the role of being a good husband and a good father, because my time is going to be pretty damn constrained for the next, I don't know, 6 years. But I want it to be, I'm choosing it to be
Yeah.
constrained because that's the role I want to have in my child's life, and to have a happy marriage.
But it's also good because you are setting up from now also some patterns, right? Like you are allowing yourself to have those 30 minutes and not feel guilty for having those 30 minutes. And that's something that is going to transcend, and of course there might be days where you are not going to have the 30 minutes and that's fine, but it's just like from now you're already kind of setting that standard that it can be done even for yourself. You don't have to prove that to anybody and you don't have to justify that to anybody, but it's for yourself. And I think that's very important.
Yeah, and I think it would be incredibly difficult to, just from a planning standpoint, like I don't see how it's feasible and healthy unless you have, an incredible family support system and nannies to be in heavy training right now.
Yeah.
For the husband. And look, we know professional athletes who do it, but man, it's got to be tough, and that's something you have no idea until you're in it. I get it for those professional athletes, it's their livelihood and, that's how they put food on the table, but it's like, man, crazy.
And even in that case, we look at, and we really don't know about the case of Joe Skipper, but he says he's been able to sleep. His wife has been really open and helped him to kind of sleep through the night and stuff like that. And for the guys that don't know, Joe Skipper is a professional athlete, triathlete that his wife just had a baby, and he has had 2 rough races actually. Like Ironman Texas didn't go well, and then he just did the long distance world championship, didn't go well. And he's a guy who is not having to wake up at night to take care of the baby. He's actually sleeping in a separate room, which is extremely hard from an emotional standpoint. And even in that case, he's like he's not being able to perform. So I'm sure it's a very hard load, and I can't imagine somebody training full on for an Ironman or competing in an Ironman while all of this is going on.
Yeah, and I think on the Pro Tri News podcast they brought up Lionel too. He's had a couple stinkers too, and I'm sure it's just the added stressors of he's been able to be on a rigid routine for his entire career, and then all of a sudden he's thrown off, and he'll adapt. I mean, they're both incredible athletes, but I think it's a matter of just being patient and taking into account how much stress he's under, and it's showing up on race day when you have to be 100% dialed. So yeah, I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't, obviously when we talk to our athletes, we know what's going on in their life, and I wouldn't recommend they train for anything. I mean, even a 70.3 would be a stretch. If you're just trying to complete it, fine, but it's a little bit too self-serving at this point, I think, in your new family. But That's just my opinion. And if we have 2 more kids, maybe I will evolve.
What would you change as a coach? Like, what is something that you maybe have done that you will do differently now? I think that's like a good point to wrap up this part of the conversation.
In terms of what?
Maybe in terms of training scheduling. I don't know, more on that side, because like in the cases that I've had, I still maybe schedule some training with the caveat that they can do whatever they want, but also, like they still have something there on their training peak. So what would you change in your case?
Yeah, just being way more flexible for the first month, and allowing that athlete to have maybe a little bit more autonomy than they've had in the past, and just encouraging flexibility. I struggle with that personally, just because I'm so regimented in my way. But my wife is helping me realize, like, look, there's a bigger picture here, and like a silly local race, it really doesn't mean a damn thing. And so just stay fit, stay healthy. And when the time is right, my love for the sport will never disappear. Like, it's just a matter of staying fit. We don't need, I think the biggest thing I change is reminding athletes that they don't need to be training for a race to continue to train. It takes me back to COVID. Like, all of our athletes were still training, and for the benefits outside of racing, right? There are far more benefits than just getting a $700 t-shirt. Like, we're all better people for it. So I think I would just encourage people that they don't need to be training for a race to follow a blueprint, and they also don't need to be afraid to move things around, to modify as we go, with the just thinking a little bit more macro and not being fixated by the micro.
And I think that's where communication, right, comes into play as well. Coach athlete communication, where letting the athletes know, and we try to do that. I know you do, I do, and our other coaches do, of like, we're here to help you guys integrate that training plan into life, and whatever that means, whatever adjusting it's needed. I think it's fair to do. So I think all important points. And my last point for you is, like, I think you have so much love for the sport that by the fact of being fit and now being so happy with what's going on, you will show up to a race and you will surprise yourself of what you're capable of doing, because you have so many years in the sport. And I think that's another reminder for people. It's like, muscle memory is real, and when there is like a happy brain and like a happy head above that body, it does incredible things. So I will also go into that because it's super important. And I think you right now have a bigger and different motivation, a different perspective in sports. The next time you line up for a race, it's gonna be special.
I'm waiting for the dad wads. They are not here yet. I can tell you that. I can tell you that for sure. There are no dad wads here. That is for sure. But and we can dive into another conversation. I know. We're going to be talking about this on Instagram, but just talking about the Cora's perspective and how she's been a lifelong athlete, and just dealing with how her body changes and how she slowly had to taper down training and how that affected her. And, now with her, slowly recovering, and how her return to sport how that looks like. How has this changed her perspective? Does she want to continue to race? Does she want to continue to train, to set an example? There's a lot that we can dive into, and we can have Cora on the next one, maybe diving into that, because I know she's still reflecting on it herself.
And I think that's why we don't want to we have that different aspect. And I think when we say newborns, in this case we're talking about fathers, but we know that the mother side is like, that's a whole other conversation that will open many more hours of talk, because it's deeper in many ways, and we don't pretend to be experts on. At least I'm a complete ignorant on that. So I guess we can wait to talk more about that. Transitioning to other topics, Jason. So we had the PTO European Open this weekend. We don't want to go to talk about the results. There was enough talk about that. You can go find Pro Tri News. You can find the Triathlon Mockery podcast. You can find 100 articles online. But what are a couple of things that like caught our eye on that race? What was something that was impressive for you that you kind of reflected on after the race?
Just how fast Annie Howe can run. I mean,
Impressive.
yeah, obviously she's a multiple Ironman champion. How many times has she won Hawaii? Is it just once?
I think once. I think she won once,
Well, at least
and
once. But anyway, she outran, I think, all but 6 men, which is
I thought it was
insane.
12 men. 12 men.
Maybe 12. Well, regardless,
It's
incredible
crazy
performance.
still.
And then so I think it was just the raw running speed in that race. And then my big takeaway was Jason West, who he went through 10K in 30 minutes flat, the first 10K.
It's impressive. It's impressive.
And then hung on and ran reasonably well the second half. So, yeah, obviously a guy like Jason West doesn't quite have the riding pedigree yet, but he's working with Catalyst coach, who's Flora Duffy's coach. So he's getting stronger on the bike. So yeah, pretty cool to see.
EF Pro Cycling's
Yes.
coach. So he coaches a couple of riders in EF. So it's very scary. It's very, like if you look at the most impressive, and I think Max Newman is the one who pointed this out. If you look at his race in Miami, Clash Miami in March, he ran at 3:10 per K. What's that in minutes per mile? Around 5 minute miles for 10 miles, something like that, off the bike to win that race. So that's incredible run speed in long distance. We have not seen that level of run speed in long distance. I mean, Patrick Lange was never close to that. And so like I think that's very impressive. You might lose sight of it because he finished fifth, but you know, he was running guys down. If the race was 21K, he will end up in the podium. So he was extremely impressive. And for me, I guess the case of Max Newman, you know, I actually think he was pretty raw in his post race interview, and if people haven't had a chance to see it, it's he made some statements, but he then went to clarify in a podcast a day later what he meant when he was saying BS science, and it's basically a good reminder to focus on the basics. Just for the people who don't know, Max and his brother Mitch, he's coached by his brother. They live in Australia. They kind of stay away from the bright lights most of the year until the big races come, and they just they go to those races. They have a specific plan, and they really focus on the basics. Like that's what he meant when he made that statement. Is like, look, guys, right now there is so much noise on science and like these very fancy artifacts in science and stuff like that. But if we focus on the basics, and if you work on the basics and then you put all those other stuff in top, that's what you get. You get a guy that is competing at the highest level. So I think it was a good reminder, because it's easy to get caught up on whatever Christian Blumenfeld is doing or the latest piece of kit that Jan Frodeno is wearing or whatever. And it's good to have the reminder of like, okay, there are basic things that we can work on as athletes, regardless of our level, that are non-negotiables.
Yeah, totally. And I think obviously there are some things we don't want to divert from when we race, but we don't need to always go into the race with a perfect blueprint or Excel spreadsheet. Like, racing should be fun. You don't need to be. Look, we all have a power target that we prescribe, or heart rate parameters that we prescribe. Like, sure, we need that, but we don't need to fixate on every single thing we put in our mouth in the days leading in. It's like we can be a little bit flexible and just learn to love the sport for what it is, which is just about getting the most out of yourself on the day, not necessarily hitting a specific number. There's a meme out there, I think, like one of those running cartoons, and one of the runners said, I had a really good run. I got 4, PRs on Strava and yada, yada, yada. And then the other runner goes, did you have fun? And then it's just a blank stare on the other runner's face. Like,
yeah. And I think if you look at the guy at the guy's race, which sadly that's what they show the most on the broadcast on the bike, like those guys were, I'm sure those guys were having fun pushing the watts on the bike because they all ran, let's say, a little bit below their standard, because you can tell that they were pretty toasted by the time they got off their bikes. Like they were absolutely having fun. They probably forgot how many watts they had to push or whatever, and they were just going. And you can see that in an Alistair Brownlee where, you know, he just put his head down and he reminded us of when he was racing in ITU in World Triathlon 10 years ago. Same with Kyle Smith. He was supposed to wait for Jan Frodeno and he was going so fast that he dropped him.
It was pretty shocking to see, not shocking, but we haven't seen Frodeno race in quite some time. So yeah, he certainly didn't have the legs for that 100K distance, but I think we'll have him come right in Hamburg for the full distance. Soon we'll get to a rematch against Max Newman, who was able to, I don't want to say shock the world, but it's definitely the biggest career win for him, even though he's had incredible performances in the past.
Yeah, I think for Max, and he admitted this in the podcast, it's gonna be hard to be, you know, to fly under the radar in future races. He managed to not have any media commitments and things like that in this race, and that's not gonna happen again. He's going to have a target in his back, and same with some of the girls or ladies, sorry, that finished near the top. Like it's gonna change a little bit, and so it's interesting. It's nice to see where the sport is going at that level, and we can't wait for what's to come. We did notice a piece of gear, and we had, I think Alexander is the one who made the question on Discord, and we wanted to expand on that. If you can see, like all the athletes had a little transponder on the back of their kits, and I did some digging through the media and the dark media of triathlon, and it looks like they were trying to test a new system of broadcasting. How you call that? Metrics, like live metrics of the athletes, like heart rate and speed and things like that, straight from a GPS unit that they were carrying. So if you also noticed, they had a heart rate strap on their arms, and it was all for this purpose of being to showcase more data and kind of get an insight of what's happening with each athlete during the race, which is always interesting. It happens in cycling nowadays, so we can't wait for that to make its way into triathlons, for us to get that data.
Yeah, I guess. Go ahead.
No. You want to?
I just want to do a quick reminder. Is Yokohama this weekend?
Yokohama is this weekend. Yeah. Yokohama is this weekend. Yeah.
A good race to watch. Just totally different type of racing. Of course, Blumenfeld will be racing there, but for those who need something to watch indoors, make sure you have your triathlon or World Triathlon or triathlon.org subscription and watch it. And we can get on that because these men and women are aliens.
Incredible.
They're so incredibly fast. Yeah.
You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting for Yokohama this weekend, and it's like this year. It's the qualifying period for the Olympics. It's in like its prime right now, and you start seeing how athletes compete between countries. And so there is no more competition between countries. Sorry, it's inside the country. So there is an inside country competition going on while the race is going. Like the US athletes are going to be racing each other in a way constantly from now on till, you know, the qualification period ends, and they are going to be trying to gain more points, which is going to benefit the country in general. But at the same time, they want to be very highly ranked as an athlete for a specific country, because that's going to benefit their chances of qualifying to the Olympics. So there are a lot of politics going on in that side of triathlon, and it's always interesting. It does change the racing a little bit and the dynamics of races. So I think we can expect some fireworks in Yokohama. So for those needing to watch, as Jason said, go ahead and take a look at that because it's going to be fun. And lastly, we have, just to close, we have a good couple of athletes racing in Morro Bay, 70.3, right? And I think water temperature is going to be cold. We have had some experience with that ourselves as athletes. And also we have a couple of techniques that we want to kind of share with athletes. You want to start and maybe go after?
Yeah, we have 3 athletes racing Morro Bay, but I mean, this time of year in the Northern Hemisphere, if you're racing, look, St. George just happened. That water was probably quite cold. So In the Northern Hemisphere, if you're racing in a natural body of water, it's probably going to be in the low 60s Fahrenheit. What is that in
Yeah,
centigrade, Pablo?
low 20s, I believe. Low 20s,
Yes,
low 20s,
enough
and
to
into
take
the
your breath
10s.
away. And if you just put on your wetsuit and jump in the water, there's a good chance you're gonna experience what we call a panic attack, or just extremely uncontrolled breathing, hyperventilation, and you just won't have a good experience. And it can happen to even experienced athletes. I've experienced it firsthand. So
Yep.
what our tips would be to obviously get in the water the day before. You know,
Absolutely.
that's your best move. Just get in, and get knee deep, and then slowly splash the water on your face just to feel it. And then I recommend just soaking your face in it for
Yeah.
5 seconds at a time, then 10, then 15, then 20, then 30, and just slowly get used to it. And then submerge your whole face, and then just slowly go in, and just get comfortable in it. Obviously in your wetsuit. Just do that the day
I will also
before
grab.
and just relax. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then for the day of the race, it's find some space. I think allow yourself some space. If you feel, a little bit scared, that's fine. And I think with the rolling starts now with Ironman, it allows people to have a little bit more space. So don't feel like you have to go into the whole like fight for position or anything like that right away. And also something that I started doing because I've suffered of panic attacks in cold water is grab a bottle of water with very cold water and just pour that into your wetsuit before you get into the water. What's going to happen is you're going to start warming up that water that is close to your chest and your body. And by the time you get into the water, that shock of cold water is going to lessen, and it's not going to be as extreme as if you were to just jump in dry. So that's a little reminder for our athletes. Just, it can be like a $1 bottle of water that you buy at a gas station that is basically frozen or just very, very cold. To be able to just pour it inside your wetsuit, and that's going to help massively by the time you get into the water. And also just allow yourself to have some space. Like I think sometimes we try to rush things and we try to gain that 1 minute, but then we end up hanging from a kayak 5 minutes. And so if you're going to be 1 minute slower by giving yourself some space and then gain time later, that's fine. I think that's a good strategy.
Yeah. And I think, look, if you're racing at 70.3, start it like you're starting an Ironman. Don't go out at 90%, start, because that's just going to get your heart rate even higher. We don't, I've never had an athlete tell me, I wish I would have started to swim faster. Never, ease into it, treat it as if you're racing an Ironman. If you're racing an Ironman, start even slower. Just ease into it and slowly let your body experience that shock of cold, and then just slowly accelerate. Whether you're swimming 24 minutes for a half or 44 minutes, we may be giving up, maybe 30 seconds by a slightly slower start, but I would reckon that you would end up swimming faster anyway. So yeah, slow start and get acclimated as quickly as you can. And look, the swim should be the easiest part of the day. Just relax.
Yep. Don't waste too much energy that you're literally gonna waste it because you're not gonna get much faster. So
Yeah.
yeah. And I guess that's good. We've been talking for almost 30 minutes. So
yeah, we
that's a good
can
way
leave
for
it
us.
open. We've got a
We
few
have a
people
couple
on.
people. Any questions for the athletes that are on? I guess we had a comment from Alex. Let's see. Oh, he was talking about swaddling. So
Yeah, he's probably a pro. He's got 2 daughters.
And no, none of the other ones have questions.
Okay,
I
cool.
don't
Well,
think.
yeah.
Oh, look at that! Camilo has a question. Camilo just did a
Camille.
Madrid. He just did Madrid marathon.
Oh, can you walk, Camille?
Yeah.
Yes, now he can. Now he can.
What about downstairs? I bet downstairs is still painful.
They were really hard. Yes.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. For those cold swimming races, is it recommendable to warm up before? Because of the freezing water and this panic attack that athletes may experience, is it recommendable like to warm up to, I don't know?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think the point there is right now in most Ironman races, people are not allowed to get into the water for warm up. So if you want to do like a quick jog on your wet, like all with your wets already on, if it's too cold outside, or stuff like that, and maybe what you can do for warm up is more like, something I started doing is like planks. If you do a plank, like a straight arm plank, and you start like touching your other shoulder, that's a good way to get like your core also warmed up and things like that, before you get into the water, because you're not going to be able to jump into the water, where you're going to be swimming most Ironman races. Like, stop that. So that's why the bottle of water is always a good strategy to get yourself wet before you start swimming.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
thanks.
I've had some athletes ask if they could put, like not boiling, but very hot water down their wetsuit before a cold swim. I wouldn't recommend it. I would feel like that would just exacerbate the cold water when you do get in. So yeah, I know it's uncomfortable, but stick to stick to cold water after your muscles are primed and warmed up. If that just means a 5 minute jog, fine. But yeah, you should try to get the body primed and a little bit warmer, before you get in. Typically the longer the race, the shorter the warm up. So for a full Ironman, don't feel like you need to go for a 2K jog. It should be a slow crescendo as you build throughout the day.
Yeah, good question. That's a good question, because that's probably going to be in some athletes' mind.
Okay,
Good.
thank you.
Thank you, Camilo.
Well, cool. Well, yeah, we will save this recording and post it, but we'll keep you posted on the next one. If you have any questions that you want us to talk about, just drop them on the Discord. If you're not on the Discord, I think everybody
Get on
here
Discord.
is. Yeah, get on the Discord. Communicate, pontificate, have fun.
Pontificate. Yeah, and we have topics we had some topics we couldn't even talk about. So that's for the next one. Another reason for Toro Talks.
Yeah.
2.
Okay, guys. Well, have a good rest of your evening, and thanks for taking the time. If you're watching the replay, we'll see you next time. All right. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thank you.